$400 million is the bid, and the piece is sold.
Now, with all those questions about the richest painting sale ever, who is the mystery buyer?
The buyer was rather calm for bidding this kind of money.
It is both ironic and saddening at the same time that seemingly ordinary elements of our daily lives, which we take for granted, could be connected in various ways to another hidden world filled with crimes against people and the exploitation of resources.
Take a look at this guy.
Nazim Ahmad.
Where on earth is he?
Money is the game, power is the aim. City's gonna pay when they got nothing to lose. He's got nothing to lose. No, sin too deep, soul to soul, and it wasn't cheap. He's got nothing to lose, still got nothing to lose. Oh, I'm nothing to run against.
Just making sure, your surname is pronounced Hellwager.
Hellwager, yeah.
That's Dr. Angelika Hellwager.
Dr. Hellwager, thank you so much for sparing the time to discuss Nazim Said Ahmad today. As you are probably aware, he is a notorious figure who has evaded sanctions since 2019, and he has had a fresh round of sanctions imposed on, in relation to him, people who are closely associated with him and his business empire, again in 2023. What is the story of Nazim Said Ahmad, and what is his background, what is his history, and how has he accomplished the status that he has acquired today as a trader of blood diamonds and also a trader of fine arts pieces?
What is quite striking is the history of Nazim Ahmad is quite a long one. Yeah, he's dual citizenship. He's Lebanese and, as I'm aware, also Belgian citizen. So he obviously also had access to diamond trade in Belgium a lot. Yeah, he built this empire over the years, known from the beginning of the 2000s actually upwards. So authorities started with investigations, in particular in the US in 2016. It was a years-long investigation, ending then up in 2019 with the first sanctioning round on him. What we need to take into account and why it was actually in 2019 are a few developments. First of all, the Trump administration, which was unhappy that the Iran deal was off the books. Yeah, there could not be found an agreement. Also, the inner politics within Lebanon to build pressure against the Lebanese government or against decision makers in the Lebanese government. The wish to do actually more against Hezbollah, and these were all developments, and also an investigation in the US, which ultimately led to the first sanctioning round of Nazim Ahmad.
Yeah, no surprise that you're actually interested in this guy. The DOJ says that he's quite the man, I would say.
I mean, it really is interesting. I mean, how could an individual use such beautiful pieces of art this way?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time that we hear money launderers, criminals just relying on art for this kind of things. It's my oldest high school teacher used to say that art is everything that you want to call it art. So the sort of value of art is very subjective. So what for me is a beautiful painting, for somebody else is a splash of paint. And so because the value is so different and it's so subjective, you can also say, oh, this is worth £1 million. Well, actually, maybe it's worth nothing. and as a result, you can launder the proceeds through it. And art is very easily movable. You know, think about how easy it is to take whatever little piece of furniture in your luggage, and now with digital art and all this kind of stuff, it's even easier. So yeah, I'm not surprised that we're seeing pieces of art included in this, you know, in this case. But also, according to the DOJ, this guy is quite known for having a passion for high value items. You know, his family allegedly was included in the diamond trade, so diamonds are another even smaller piece through which you can launder proceeds of crime. So it feels that it fits a pattern here.
I mean, it's just looking at the paintings, I don't think some of the most beautiful pieces that I've actually ever seen.
Yeah.
It's
Do you know,
very
actually,
strange.
you know who you should talk to, and who's definitely the expert here on diamond trade, and, you know, oh, here you go, you have Hezbollah and terrorist financing. My boss, Tom Keating, he's definitely gonna be the man for you.
Hi, Tom.
Hello.
I'm Hala. I'm going to be your presenter today. Tom Keating, thank you so much for sparing the time, and welcome to my study. In reference to the case in question, Nazim Ahmad, how he has managed to exploit galleries and artworks for money laundering and complicating any attempt by the authorities to trace his assets in companies. I don't know whether you are able to perhaps cast some light on this. Is it the complexity of his business network? Is it shell companies? Is it, within the case of Nazim, that is it relying on front companies, or perhaps even individuals within his close circle or within his business associates to be conducting business on his behalf?
Well, so it'll be a combination of all of those, right? You know, you might stroll into a gallery in London, they check your name, you're not on any watch list. You buy the painting, you pay with money which isn't your money, but which, you know, you're representing XYZ LLC company that's registered in the British Virgin Islands, blah, blah, blah. And the ultimate beneficial owner, hidden by lots of shell companies and so on, is Nazim. And the next thing is you pass that painting over to an associate of his, and it's on the wall in his gallery in Beirut. So, you know, I think it's just a question of using building blocks to put as much distance between the sanctioned individual and the asset that you're buying. And of course, the more sophisticated the counterparty, so if it's a bank you're dealing with, you're going to have quite a complicated obfuscation structure. If it's a second-tier auction house that doesn't have a compliance department and has never even heard of sanctions, well, you don't have to put many steps in the chain at all.
US Department of Justice investigations indicate that transactions linked to Ahmad exceeded a total of $400 million. In addition to his diamond trade in the United States, which amounted to $80 million despite the sanctions, Ahmad purchased artworks from American citizens worth over $1.2 million through hidden financial transactions, with each transaction not exceeding $10,000 to avoid US legal requirements.
So perhaps in terms of regulations and legal monitoring, there still exists some grey areas within this discussion.
Well, there are immense kind of loopholes or failings in the system. As I say, you know, banks have invested billions and billions of dollars in trying to develop the systems to identify money laundering and sanctions evasion. You know, art galleries and dealers in precious metals and gemstones have not.
Yeah.
So where would you go if you wanted to game the system?
Despite imposing the US sanctions, how do you think the complex web of entities within his business empire, they continue to appraise and trade diamonds within the United States itself? I mean, does this have to do with specific legal loopholes within the US federal system, or the US federal law, that I should say, that Nazim has exploited? Or was it that the ownership and tracking of these companies was too difficult to trace, owing to their complexities, the availability of front companies, the availability of the employment of shell companies within trading activities, and so on and so forth?
So when you think about a kind of a sanctions regime, the easy bit is putting a name on the list. Then the question is, what's the implication of that? What companies do they own or control? Because those are also then affected by the sanctions. But importantly, you then need to get the information out into the public domain to ensure that those that are implementing the sanctions aren't implemented by governments, sanctions are implemented by the banks, the lawyers, the accountants that are meant to freeze the funds and stop working with the sanctioned individuals or entities. So yes, of course, there are often loopholes and hopefully those loopholes get closed, but there's also just a general lack of awareness. I mean, honestly, how many companies and smaller financial institutions might even be following the story of Nazim? If they're not following the story, then how do they know that they shouldn't be facilitating transactions related to that individual? So I think there's a fallacy of understanding in sanctions, which is the name goes on the list and the life of that individual, that company stops, the financial life stops instantly. It's simply not the case. The name goes on the list, and then the system, the private sector, needs to digest that information somehow and then act on it accordingly. So it never surprises me. People say, oh, the circumvention, there are loopholes. Well, yeah, of course there are, because it's not an instant fix when you issue sanctions.
Yes, of course, but I think in the case of perhaps Iran, the imposition of sanctions have led to a complete boycott within a matter of months by Russian giants and within Europe and the United States, and they boycotted the Iranian energy markets almost instantly. From your perspective, why do you think that private entities have taken a little bit more time to catch on with Nazim's set of designations?
But I would kind of challenge that point, because have people actually, have they really boycotted the Iranian energy market? Iran still happily exports oil around the world, but the way it does it is through front companies and shell companies to kind of hide the trail. And so this is what happens, right? So someone finds that they're sanctioned. It's very rare for the person or the company that's sanctioned to sit there and go, oh, I'm sorry, I give up, right? They don't do that. They restructure the way they operate. They involve their family members. They set up front companies and shell companies to obfuscate the fact that they are still the beneficiary of whatever financial flow is going on, or whatever sale of diamonds, or whatever it might be. So I think it's really important to understand that there is a kind of an industry out there that can help people evade sanctions. First of all, it's important to separate here the discussion about sanctions evasion, which is basically trying to avoid restrictions that have been placed on you, and then the question of money laundering. And I think diamonds have an important role to play in the money laundering story. So how might that occur? You might insert yourself into the diamond supply chain. So you might own diamond mines in Africa, but somewhere along the line, yes, you basically insert yourself into the supply chain. You have funds that have come to you perhaps from an organized crime group or from a terrorist organization like Hezbollah and its activities in, I don't know, Central America or South America, let's just say, in drug trafficking. And your job as the money launderer is to clean those funds. So what are you trying to do? Well, what you're trying to do is this three-step process that people often talk about, which is placement, layering, and integration. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to place your money into the financial system in a way that doesn't get noticed. And one of the ways to do that is by layering it, by sort of trying to find lots of different ways into the financial system. And then you want ultimately to integrate that money into the financial system so you can spend it. And diamonds represent obviously a difficult to trace asset. Of course there are records, but it's a difficult to trace asset. So I would say, if I'm in the diamond supply chain, don't worry about it, Hezbollah. Give me 10, 20, 50, $100 million. I will turn that into diamonds, and then at a later date, those diamonds can be sold, you get the money, and it appears clean.
Hello, Maria. How are you?
Hello, good to see you. I'm
You
good.
too. How was your day?
That's right.
I had a really interesting meeting with Tom Keating.
I'm glad.
We were actually discussing Nazim Ahmad. What is really interesting is that Nazim Ahmad remains on the loose until now. His illicit trading activities have been reported for quite some time now, yet nobody really knows his whereabouts. And
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. You know, it's quite one thing is designating, another one is going after and prosecuting and enforcing the sanctions. What we see is many criminals absconding from police, but even so, even those that we know where they are, even those that we have the assets traced, and we have located the villas, the yachts, and whatever, it's just so hard to make the connection between the individual, the assets, and the crime that or the things for which they have been sanctioned. So what we're seeing right now is a massive lack of resources from law enforcement agencies all around the world, really. So it's not just a US problem or a UK problem. And these people keep on traveling. So, you know, while you have the US maybe looking after this guy, maybe he has already moved to another jurisdiction that is probably a little bit more complacent. You know, listen, lately we have been seeing the UAE, for instance, we've seen Turkey as the key, you know, jurisdictions as facilitators of sanction evaders. So you see a lot of, for instance, Russian oligarchs that are moving to Dubai. So you see, obviously, international cooperation is important not just for the countries that impose sanctions, so the designators, but also for the whole international community that essentially, in a way, is implementing these sanctions.
what do you have over here?
This is something that I thought you could find pretty interesting, talking about, you know, these sort of individuals and evasion and sanctions regimes.